Hi everyone, I'm Troy. I'm the creative behind Fox and Oak Designs, and I'm based in Prince Edward Island. For longtime viewers, you may know that that's not usually how I introduce the podcast, the video. I'm trying something new today. As I mentioned earlier, at the beginning of this month, that I'm going to be doing a project-based video on the 5th Monday of every month. So today's episode is, I'm just going to guide you through what my thought process behind making a skein of yarn. So I spun this skein of yarn over the course of a little bit more than a month. I started there before the new year, and I finished this up quite literally yesterday morning for me and for you, because I'm recording this I'm recording this Monday morning for you. I used my Ashford Kiwi 3 to spin it. Throughout the video there'll be some video of me spinning. And this is a spinning braid, or it was a spinning braid, that I bought from Good Fibrations, Liz Miller from Good Fibrations, in the colorway Drink the Kool-Aid, and it is a Polwarth and silk blend. So I wanted to walk you through what my thought process behind this project was and tell you how things evolved as things went on. What I wanted to do with this is that I wanted to do a fine 2-ply. I was planning on doing a lace weight, but do a fine 2-ply lace weight, but do a fractal spin. And that's how I started this project. So what I did to prepare this project, I didn't actually record this because I had already done all these steps before I had the idea to do the project. So I'm going to show you what I did with this braid instead. What I did is I took that braid and I split it down the middle for a fractal spin. So I know we've discussed what a fractal spin is a couple times on this podcast, but for beginners, I'll go through it again. So the fractal spin is a color preparation of a spinning braid. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your spinning braid and you're actually going to take it and you're going to split it down the best you can down the middle. So that way you have two as equal parts as you can get it. So this is basically what I did for this first braid. Once you get started there, it's pretty easy to split it down. It just keeps splitting. You just need to keep in mind that you want your rovings to be about the same thickness. So if it starts to thin out on one side, double check that, split the bigger piece together, and then go from there. I like to split it right from the braid because it's just easier to handle. And you go ahead and you split it all the way down the center. I'm going to be spinning this as a as a fractal spin later on. And you just split it all the way down the middle. So then your next thing that you want to do is figure out which end of this roving that you're going to spin, because the idea is that you want to be spinning from the tip to tail of these rovings, and you need to make sure that your tips are the same side. So what I like to do is figure out which side's my tail, which is usually the end that I just finished splitting, and I'm going to tie a little knot on the end of it here. Okay, just a loose little knot. Something that I can take out later. And the reason for that is you can't spin from this end with a knot in it. So that way I know if I pick up this roving that this is the back end, this is the tail. So now that I've split my braid, what I like to do is just braid it up so that way I keep it organized. But you're going to take one of the braid, doesn't matter which one, and you're going to spin it from tip to tail. You're just going to go and spin across the top of the roving and you're going to go from this end all the way to the tail. Then on your second bobbin, you're going to split your bobbin and you're going to take your second roving, you're going to split it in half again, just like what I just showed you, and you're going to put a little knot in them again, and you're going to spin both of them tip to tail on the same bobbin, and you're going to be spinning across the braid. If you're not familiar with spinning, you might be thinking, well, how does that work out? As you're spinning, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be spinning a very specific thickness in the thread, so you'll just go through the thinner braid twice as fast. So it'll take about the same time. This is what I was planning to do with this braid. So I did split this braid down in half, like I just did this one, which I will take down out of frame, and I split it down in half. And then halfway through my first bobbin, I realized that the thickness of the thread, basically, that I was getting the single was about as thick as I actually wanted the lace weight to be. I wanted to work with a really fine lace weight to do the wedding ring shawl style shawl that I'm going to be doing for the masterclass. So I decided halfway through the first bobbin that I was just going to do a single. So after I had finished my first braid, I just spun the second part of my braid from tip to tail, just like I'd done before. and let it sit on my bobbin. So normally I'd let the entire amount sit on the bobbin for overnight at least before I do anything with it. But time constraints, I really only finished spinning it yesterday. But I only had about 6 inches of the braid left for me to spin. So I just spun that really quickly there yesterday morning, and I soaked it. There's a picture up on the screen here of me taking it off the bobbin using a niddy noddy. I didn't go through like a tutorial on how to use it, because this is really just me learning how to use it for the first time. Because I've played with niddy noddies before, but I've never actually skeined anything with my niddy noddy. I had always cheated before and used the skein winder at work. So I took the time to put the skein onto the niddy noddy, and it took me about an hour and a half or so. I expected it to take closer to 2.5 hours because of how much like thread was on my bobbin, but it only took me an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. Really kind of a pensive, sort of thoughtful, easy thing to do. Just watch some YouTube while I did it. The next step after I got it on the niddy noddy, I pulled it off the niddy noddy and realized at that point, I may have put too much twist into this. If I can rip it off of Instagram, I'll put the reel here up on the screen without the sound, because I have annoying sound on it. But if you follow my Instagram, you've already seen this reel of how much twist was in this yarn. As soon as I took it off the niddy noddy, it started coiling. There was so much energy to this yarn. And if you look at the skein really close, which I will show you later, there is still quite a bit of energy in this skein, even after I had set the twist. So what I did to set the twist, I actually did a couple of things. My first thought before I started was, after I soaked it in hot water and like snapped it, and snapping a yarn, you soak it in hot water, and then you take the wet skein and you snap it. A couple of times. You do this a few times, and that helps distribute the twist throughout the yarn. I don't know how much that's picking up on the microphone, but anyway, it helps distribute the twist throughout the skein. And then what I did, and I have a video of this, of both these things, is I took the wet skein and I whacked it against something. I whacked it quite a bit more than what I have on the video. I just wanted to show you what I did to whack it. So please forgive the state of the bathroom. It was designed in the 70s with a color palette that makes me think that they're like, oh, we'll hide the dirt. It hides the dirt by always looking dirty. Anyway, I don't have strong feelings about that. So I whacked it against the bathtub for a little while, and that helps further distribute the twist, and it helps full the yarn. So that is when we're felting the strand just a little bit, and that's necessary for a single ply. My original plan was to more fully full the yarn by using my Yang skeiner, my Umbrella Swift here, as well as my ball winder over. I didn't take them down. And you can see video of me doing this. I had soaked the yarn in hot water, because after I had finished whacking it, the yarn was cool again. So what I did is I soaked it again in hot water, so that way I could get it up to a higher temperature. And I put a little bit of soap in the water, a little bit of dish soap. And the purpose of that is to further lubricate those scales of the wool to interlock with one another to felt them. And my original plan was to put it on the skein winder here and wind it off onto my ball winder. And while I'm winding it off, the hand that I'm using to guide the yarn to the yarn guide, I was actually going to be slightly squishing the yarn in between my fingers to further full the yarn. That's a mouthful. But as you'll see on the screen, when I started to do that, the yarn was still wet, and there was still so much energy in this yarn that it did not want to let go of itself, and it kept getting caught on the little coils that are all through the yarn. So what I ended up doing is, instead of finishing that, because it ended up breaking, I threw that little piece out. What I ended up doing is that I actually set it by hanging it with a weight. That's another way you can set the yarn. There is some issues with doing that, because it can sometimes cause bias in your yarn, in your finished product. I might have to deal with that later, but I'm hoping that with the size needle that I'm planning on using, which is about a 4mm, maybe a 3.5, depending on what metal tips I've got available, and the open work that I'm using. I'm hoping that's not going to cause a problem. So the skein is still slightly damp. So I'm not going to wind it off into a ball just yet. I'm going to wait until it's completely dry. And before I do it, I'm just going to, before I put this onto my skein winder, I'm just going to go and make sure that I can separate and comb my fingers through the skein all the way down. Because the issue that I was having there before was that the part of the yarn that I was trying to take off of the skein winder kept getting caught in itself. So I'm going to just go and just, wait until it's completely dry and then rake my fingers through the entire thing to rake my fingers through the entire skein so I can get rid of these like little twists in the yarn before I really start. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. There's the thing. So you can still see that all those like tiny little coils that you see throughout the yarn, that is because there's still so much energy in this yarn. The only solution I can see at this point to fix the energy that's in this yarn is to perhaps put it back on, like put it into a ball and like wind it into a ball, and then either hope since I spun this Z, it will it'll untwist as I knit it. And if I pull from the right side of like the correct side, not the right side, but if I pull from the correct side of the ball winder from the cake that the ball winder makes, it'll further unply. I'm hoping that will be enough. So I will do a little swatch to see how the bias of this is. But if I can't do that, then what I will probably do is cheat a little bit and put this skein on a cone, and then use the plier at work to just remove like half a twist from it. I don't want to take too much twist out of it because it is a single, and if I take the twist out of a part that is a little bit thicker, it might just blow apart at that point. So overall, I am really happy with the consistency of the spin, because the thing that I was really focusing on wasn't just how fine I was going. I was just going as fine as I felt comfortable going at the time. The real thing that I was that I was focusing on was making sure that it's consistent. So I have a lovely little skein. I wouldn't say it's little. So the stats of this yarn, I don't know how heavy it is because it's still a little damp. When I weighed it this morning, it was 140 grams, and I bought a 100-gram spinning braid. So like that 40 grams is just how much water is in here. So I'll probably have more details on how thick, or I'll have more details on how much I actually got out of it. I think I got the full 100. I didn't waste very much at all. Maybe like a little tiny little ball's worth. This is a really fine lace, I found out. I didn't trust my own ability. It turns out that this is about a 45 wraps per inch thread. So we're moving into cobweb weight as opposed to just a lace weight. I could have taken this and made it into a 2-ply lace weight. When I counted the strands, I did not count all of them because who has the time? What I ended up doing is I counted 100 of them and then estimated how much more I would have to count. So I estimate that there's about 1,200 yards of a single here. So I could have done a 600 yard 100-gram skein of a 2-ply, but instead I have 1,200 yards. I really love the color. Like it was a little bit more electric on the bobbin, but it seems to have toned down a little bit. There is still some lime greens in there, but it is mostly blue, and magenta is the color that I see most in this. It's a pretty psychedelic colorway. I have been asked a number of times of what I'm going to make with it. Obviously, it's going to be a shawl, and I am torn between what I want to do. I haven't found a pattern on Ravelry yet, so if you want to suggest one, go ahead and do that down in the description. But my idea is to do something that is reminiscent of butterfly wings or fairy wings, or to do something that has mushrooms on it or some sort of fungi thing, because the colors are quite psychedelic. And I want to do something that's going to put the color palette to use. If I can't find anything suitable, then what I will do is just find a like a traditional, or make up a traditional Shetland lace pattern, and just do a big old rectangle. But we'll see. I'm going to pretend I've got 1,000 yards, just so that way I make sure that I don't run out if I do pick a bigger project. So that's my skein. So if you ever get into a project and you don't know what you're doing, or if you find that your thoughts change halfway through a project, it happens to all of us. I was going to say the best of us, but I wouldn't call myself the best. But it happens to all of us, right? And sometimes you just need to evolve with the project. I can't wait to wait until this is completely dry and then skein it off here, so I can see, so I can really get an idea of how much yarn I've got, and do a quick little swatch of what this is going to look like. I can't wait to use this because of how the colorway goes and how finely I spun it. What I think is going to happen is either that I'm going to get tiny little bands of color, or I'll get a cool gradient effect depending on how big the project ends up being, or starting to be. I'm thinking if I can't find a pattern that is like fairy wings or butterfly wings or something like that, I think I'm just going to do a rectangle, just so that way I can we can enjoy the this bands of color that this would create. Yeah. So here at the end of the video, I've got a little bit of an ASMR sort of dealy. Jessie, my roommate, recommended that I record myself spinning and just have the sound going, because she found that she could watch me spin for a very long time. I cracked a number of jokes that she was looking at me slack-jawed while I was spinning and mouth breathing at me, and she did not like that. But if you like ASMR, the rest of this video is just going to be a picture taken from, a video taken over my shoulder of me just spinning. So I hope you enjoyed this like little insight into the chaos that is my mind and what happens in a project for me, and I'll see you next week.